All right. Well, thank you for letting me be the last speaker here. So this all kind of ties in together. When we think of F5, a lot of you folks have probably heard us more on the traditional load balancing hardware virtual editions, but things have changed over the years, and we've acquired a couple companies that have helped us when it comes to microservices and DevOps. I wanted to show you the screen here. As you see from the earlier presenters here, the application landscape has transformed itself over the last couple of years, right? We see a lot of people going into multi-cloud, and DevOps is a big thing now where companies are using more automation tools to quickly spin up sites and do workloads with what we heard with Docker and Kubernetes and some of the other products that are out there. Now, when we look at microservices, right, we're seeing a trend where traditional apps, right, they're being moved from bare bones or virtual web servers to over into microservices. And when we think about microservices, it's basically taking the core components you need and to what you need to run a web server. You don't need a full dedicated server or virtual machine. Just taking out the core things that makes that website available. And you're seeing this push where these monolithic apps are being converted over into microservices architecture. So, from the monolithic world, you see that shift where, you have tools that, traditional tools like HTML, SOAP, sometimes a lot of companies have traditionally built their web application infrastructure in either their own data centers or some of them have moved them into the cloud. But now with this major shift to this modern architecture and microservices, you're seeing where companies are standing up, websites quickly, continuous deployment, continuous code, right? So again, what's cool about F5, we've been working in this space when it comes to application delivery, with our traditional load balancers and web application firewalls. But back in the early 2019, F5 went out and acquired NGINX. And some of you have probably heard of NGINX. They're one of our competitors, but they kind of work more in a different space than we did. But if you look at the websites that are running out there in the world, there's over 450 million websites that are using NGINX web application service and some of the other services that we provide. And what's cool is when we acquired NGINX back in 2019, a lot of our customers thought, okay, are this competition? And I'm like, no, this is actually complementary what we're doing on the F5 world. Some of you have probably been exposed to F5 when it comes to network operations and security operations side. But when you talk about the DevOps world, this is where NGINX plays a key part of that, right? And what's included with NGINX in the platform is, they're not only are they well known as a web application server, but there's a lot of other functions they do when it comes to the microservices world. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the next couple slides. But if we look at NGINX, traditionally it was a very slim load balancer. They say it could actually fit in a 2 megabyte file, the binaries, compared to some of our images on our F5 appliances. But not only do they do load balancing, they do a lot of things well. Web application services, API gateway, and some of the things we're going to cover. So let's look at the microservices world, right? When you look at that microservices world, right, there's a lot of components that are involved there. And when it comes to load balancing, NGINX can do the load balancing part of it. We can also function as an API gateway. Some of you are probably working with some of your departments where they need to interface APIs with other business-to-business functions, right, to pass information. We could do that with the NGINX side. And then Ingress controller. This is a key thing. You guys heard a lot today about Ingress controllers with Kubernetes. We can actually take the F5 NGINX product and use it to actually do Ingress load balancing. So what is a Kubernetes Ingress controller? So basically, it's a specialized load balancer for Kubernetes environments. So NGINX can perform that function with this product. We can actually direct user requests to the appropriate pods within Kubernetes. We also work with other vendors too. We also, when it comes to not only load balancing Kubernetes, a key area that NGINX does is also provide application security. I know a lot of you have probably heard on the F5 side, we have our web application firewall or WAF. And traditionally, we protect the edge, but sometimes we tend to forget what's happening in the back end, right? A lot of stuff is happening in that back end network in those Kubernetes pods and Docker and so on. So we have to take into account, we also have to provide security in that back end environment, right? So one of the things we do with NGINX, we do have web application firewall called NGINX App Protect. What's cool about our web application firewall, we share a lot of common features with our F5 AWAF. One of the things that I like to tell people is trusted signatures. F5 has a security operations center, one in Seattle and one based in Europe. So we get all these threat feeds from around the world. So we constantly see what attacks are happening out there against applications, and we actually create signatures to defend against those attacks. Now, the same signatures that are used by our F5 web application services is also shared with NGINX App Protect. So not only are you getting that protection on the edge, but when it goes down to the container level, right, and the Kubernetes side, you're getting that same functionality. Now, being that NGINX is such a small microkernel code, you can actually run a WAF in those environments and protect you against some of the attacks out there. You might ask yourself, hey, well, I know there's like ModSec out there, and there is a free version of ModSec you can run, but when you look at a web application firewall, ModSec is pretty much like it gives you limited features as a checkbox, right? It can do OWASP top 10, but when you look at NGINX App Protect, not only does it do OWASP top 10, those are the top 10 known vulnerabilities out there in the internet. For example, SQL injections or cross-site scripting or some of the known techniques that are out there. We actually have advanced features in our advanced App Protect product that actually protects against those types of new types of requests. And this is just to show you some chart here, kind of show you performance differences between ModSec and NGINX App Protect. So there's like no protection and so on. So this is one thing I wanted to show you. But what I wanted to do also is show you kind of like a use case with F5 and NGINX, right? So a lot of end users don't tend to see what's happening as you go to a website, right? If you move along the application path, they're not sometimes aware of what's in this box here, what's actually happening in the back end. There's a lot of tools that are running. I mentioned load balancers, you have Ingress controllers, some of the other things that are tools that are used to deliver that experience to the user, right? So here's an example of a use case where we had a particular customer and that in order to deliver their web application, this is a big site, they needed all these tools just to deliver the site. So imagine as you're going along the application path here, you're going to see some delay, as far as the web application, because it has to go through all these systems. Things such as web application firewalls, they had different vendors, including our product and some of the other vendors. And we see here that we were able to take that architecture, and by incorporating, the features of F5 and also NGINX, using some of the microservices architecture, we were able to re-architect their environment and actually streamline their environment. So if you look at this diagram, let's say, the customer's coming into your website. For this particular customer, we were able to use some of the traditional F5 technologies to provide security upfront, not only WAF security, but also DDoS protection. And then as you move down the layers, some of the bulk SSL decryption, encryption, we use some of it on hardware and some of it also virtual editions. But once you get back into that microservices world, this is where NGINX actually helps out, to speed up that backend environment. So we took their web services, we use NGINX's web application server to actually deliver websites, and also use the Ingress controller part to do the load balancing for the Ingress controllers, and also provide security in the backend when it comes to web application firewall. Now, just by doing this, we reduced a lot of the time it took to deliver that application to their customers. So again, this is a summary of what we could do in the microservices world. We do have a website that you can go to called clouddocs@f5.com. If you go to that website, there's links in there how to deploy F5 and NGINX with Kubernetes, with AWS. A lot of the vendors we talked about today, Azure, some of the major ones. But I also wanted to give you here, just a summary. Again, what we're doing, the goal at F5 is we're trying to give you the ability to assist you on how to deploy and optimize your application, whether it's traditional network or DevOps environment. If you're going to the cloud or on-premise, multi-cloud or hybrid. We have some link right here. If you want to download a trial version of NGINX, feel free to do that. But I know this is the last speaker today, but I want to make your day a little shorter for you. But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about this.